Robert Smith, the voice of The Cure, and the creative force behind some of the most melancholic, soul-stirring music in rock history, is often celebrated for his haunting lyrics, signature look, and cultural influence. Eyeliner and timeless tracks like Friday, I'm in Love lies a far more complicated story, one that many fans either overlook or simply don't know about. This isn't meant to tarnish his legacy or discredit his immense contributions to music. Rather, it's an honest exploration of the more difficult and often unspoken aspects of his life. Smith has touched millions with his vulnerability, but that vulnerability stems from real pain. For much of his life, he has openly battled depression, not just as a theme in his lyrics, but as a persistent internal struggle. Songs like 100 Years in Faith weren't just artistic expressions, they were lifelines. Smith has confessed in interviews that writing those songs was a means of survival, a way to cope with the darkness that often consumed him. At one point he even said, "I thought I'd be dead by now." As The Cure rose to massive fame in the late 80s and early 90s, those close to him noticed changes. Insiders and former bandmates have hinted that Smith grew increasingly withdrawn, often isolating himself even during intense creative periods. He was reportedly subject to extreme mood swings, sometimes approachable and soft-spoken, other times completely shut off, making collaboration difficult and emotionally exhausting. Though these accounts remain mostly anecdotal, they add a layer of complexity to his public persona. There were also persistent rumors, though never confirmed, of substance and alcohol use, particularly around the time of the Disintegration album. Smith has never directly addressed these speculations, but many believe the emotional intensity of that era's music was fueled by a combination of internal pain and external pressure. That pressure, too, was relentless. Fans, labels, and the media constantly expected Smith to embody the tortured artist, to be dark, poetic, and vulnerable at all times. He often expressed how exhausting it was to maintain that image, describing fame as something suffocating rather than liberating. Despite the acclaim, he said he never wanted to be a rock star, and that celebrity felt like a cage rather than a crown. For some fans, this darker side of Smith only adds depth to his art. It makes the music more authentic and relatable. But others believe the toll it took in him and those around him was significant. Perhaps that's why his songs resonate on such a deep emotional level. They weren't just compositions, they were catharses, raw and unfiltered expressions of survival. In the end, Robert Smith remains a complex and deeply human figure, a musical genius who has shaped generations, but also a man who has carried invisible burdens for decades. And maybe it's that very duality, the light and the dark, that makes his legacy so unforgettable.